Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I hope you're all having a great day. We got some cool news today. So it would seem that we have some rather interesting information regarding General Grievous and who he was actually supposed to be originally in the prequels. So let's go ahead and read it. And this article and this information comes from a lot of different sources, and it's actually with an interview with Henry Gilroy, who was a writer for Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Lightsaber-wielding cyborg General Grievous was one of the more interesting characters to come out of the Star Wars prequels, and George Lucas almost created the character as a secret identity for another one of the trilogy's most notorious villains, according to Star Wars: The Clone Wars writer Henry Gilroy. He says, George was considering that Grievous was Maul behind the armor plate, Gilroy told Slashfilm. It made sense. He's cut in half, and he's in this robot body or whatever. I'm glad that Grievous is his own thing anyway, but I thought it was interesting that the concept guys almost talked George into that. That's crazy. Could you imagine Maul fighting Kenobi on Utapau, but it's just Grievous? Like it's Maul in the Grievous suit, and then he just takes it off, and like what a crazy reveal that would have been, man. Now, of course, that would have changed the entire history of Star Wars. I mean, that we wouldn't have gotten any scene like that in Rebels. We wouldn't have Maul at the end of Order 66 or during Order 66 with Ahsoka on the ship or any of that stuff. I mean, it's possible we could have. He could have maybe taken a similar journey, but I have a hard time thinking that he would get away again after fighting Kenobi, this time as General Grievous. Separatist military leader General Grievous was introduced in Genndy Tartakovsky's Star Wars Clone Wars animated series, a full 2 years before his first live-action appearance in 2005 Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith. The character was largely a mechanical construct, with his yellowish eyes serving as his only visible organic component. Obi-Wan Kenobi killed Grievous in that same film, but went on to appear in several episodes of the animated Star Wars: The Clone Wars series beginning in 2008, which took place prior to Revenge of the Sith. So if you didn't know, Grievous had a really cool backstory of his own, and I'm glad Grievous got to be his own thing, you know, and there are lots of comics that were created because of Grievous, and his overall story, I think, is much more interesting than if we just had Maul pretending to be him. Now, don't get me wrong, Maul pretending to be Grievous would have had a lot of really cool moments in Star Wars as well, especially in Revenge of the Sith. However, of course, you know, Grievous is a staple now, and I kind of like the fact that he's, you know, his own guy. Sith apprentice Darth Maul's first appearance in 1999's Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, the deadly double lightsaber-wielding Maul faced Kenobi alongside Jedi Knight Qui-Gon Jinn, with the latter not surviving their encounter. Kenobi avenged his master by finishing the battle with Maul, leaving him in two before Maul plummets down a nigh-bottomless shaft. Despite Kenobi cutting Maul in half, the Sith survived, providing Lucas the impetus for Lucas to potentially bring the character back as Grievous. As it unfolded in canon, though, Maul lost his legs and his sanity, but nonetheless constructed himself a spider-like cybernetic set of limbs to replace them, as also seen in the Clone Wars. Maul and Kenobi met and faced off again in the course of the animated series, and had their final encounter in the Star Wars Rebels episode Twin Suns, when a broken Maul seeks out Obi-Wan, now Ben Kenobi, on Tatooine, but is quickly neutralized by Kenobi before subsequently dying. And that was a really cool scene too, and if you want to know more about that scene, you can check out my interview with Sam Witwer and Mark on Rule of Two, which was my previous show before Nerd Theory, which interviewed a lot of the Star Wars voice actors and people behind the scenes of Star Wars, including the books, games, and the original trilogy, including many Oscar winners that had a lot of work done on the original trilogy. The cybernetic incarnation of Maul actually first appeared in the non-canonical Old Wound story by Aaron McBride, featured in the 2005 Star Wars Visionaries graphic novel anthology published 3 years before the Clone Wars aired. So let's think about that for a second. If, let's say, Maul were to be Grievous at the very end, George was considering that Grievous was Maul behind the armor plate. It made sense. He's cut in half, and he's in this robot body or whatever. I'm glad that Grievous is his own thing anyway, but I thought it was interesting that the concept guys almost talked George into that. So either Maul is sort of hiding his upper body in this Grievous plated armor, or he actually became Grievous. So if you didn't know the story of Grievous, it's actually quite interesting, and I have a few videos on him on the channel. But essentially, he was from the planet Kali. And long story short, you know, he was a real being. He was a full-on sentient being, organic being, and he was shot down. And this was done by actually, you know, planned by Dooku and Palpatine. He was shot down and then eventually became a science experiment for Palpatine and Dooku. Now, the banking clan had a big role in, of course, funding a lot of this, and overseeing a lot of the things here, but essentially they created Grievous, and they tried so many different things, such as using the blood of Master Sifo Dyas, which was Dooku's friend since he was a child. That, of course, was rejected. You cannot use a Force Sensitive's blood in anybody else and hope that they're going to be Force Sensitive too. It just doesn't work like that. So as we saw in Force Unleashed, which we're going to be streaming on the channel every day, and we're going to be finishing the first one and then the second one just for fun. And so from there, Grievous the cyborg was born, and he went under extensive training with Dooku and learned all of the different lightsaber styles and fighting techniques that Dooku had to teach him, essentially turning him into this Jedi killing machine, literally machine. And it seemed like that was something that Dooku and Palpatine were really interested in, because the clone template being after Jango Fett is only because Dooku saw him when he was a Jedi, saw Jango kill a bunch of Jedi with his bare hands in hand-to-hand combat and destroyed them, killed them. And so it was for this reason that they decided to use him as the clone template and create all of these different clones using Jango Fett, because he was seen as like this elite being. Now, if Grievous was actually Maul, I mean, how would this have changed the entire story? So let's go ahead and ask ChatGPT for a quick little answer. Write a scenario where General Grievous was actually Darth Maul. So in the scenario, General Grievous is revealed to be Darth Maul, who had been thought to have been killed by Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. However, it is revealed that Maul had actually survived the encounter and went into hiding. After years of training and rebuilding himself, Maul emerges as General Grievous, a powerful cyborg general in the droid army of the Separatists. He uses his position to gather resources and build his own army, secretly plotting to take control of the galaxy. As the Clone Wars rage on, Maul's true identity is eventually uncovered by the Jedi, who are shocked and horrified to learn that their former enemy has returned. A fierce battle ensues as Maul, now wielding both his lightsaber and Grievous's 4 lightsabers, fights against the Jedi and their clone troopers. In the end, Maul is ultimately defeated, but not before causing significant damage to the Jedi Order and the Republic. The revelation of his survival and true identity shakes the galaxy to its core and has far-reaching consequences that are felt for years to come. So I would say that he would even maybe play out the events of Star Wars the way they were, just as Grievous had, and he would have met Obi-Wan on Utapau. And it would have been really amazing if he had pulled his mask off or something and pulled off like the top layer of all of his armor and revealed that it was Maul. I mean, Obi-Wan's face would have just been shook. I think that would have been a really interesting plot twist. And of course, you know, to have like these little mini plot twists in a rather larger plot twist, such as Order 66 and Anakin turning to the dark side, I think would have been pretty fun. But then again, it also detracts from a lot of what's going on with the main plot and main story, which was about Anakin Skywalker and him trying to save Padme. So overall, I'm really happy that Darth Maul wasn't General Grievous. I think he got a really fantastic arc in the Clone Wars and in Rebels. And in the end, you know, we almost see him kind of becoming like Obi-Wan's friend in a way. It's like they both realize that they're both just pawns in this larger game. And I like that. You know, I think I like that they both have their own arcs. Now, it would have been really cool to have once seen Darth Maul fight Anakin, but we did get to see a somewhat glimpse of that in the comics, where Anakin, as a young Padawan, fights a droid that he programmed to look, move, and fight like Darth Maul, and he ends up, you know, just destroying him. But of course, that's just a droid who doesn't have the Force and isn't Darth Maul. That being said, if Darth Maul and Anakin were to fight, I do believe Anakin would have won, but it depends what Maul we're talking about. If we're talking about Anakin Revenge of the Sith versus Darth Maul Episode 1, it's a close call, because that was a really bloodthirsty prime Maul. If we're talking about a Maul in the Clone Wars, or at the end of the Clone Wars, that's also a close call, but I would say maybe a little more dangerous because he's much more battle-hardened, he has a higher battle IQ, and his force powers are exponentially higher than they were in The Phantom Menace, because he's trained and he's been through a lot. So it kind of makes you wonder, like, what if that whole scenario had been different in the Clone Wars in Season 7, where Maul was waiting for Anakin on Mandalore? Anyways, I'm happy that Star Wars ended up to be the way it is, with Grievous being his own character and Maul being his own character. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Would you have wanted Maul to be Grievous, or do you like the fact that they're separate characters and separate entities? Still hoping we'll one day get that Son of Dathomir comic run turned into an animation, but who knows? Hope you guys have a great day. Leave a like on this video, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you always.